The massive great white shark surges from below, its powerful jaws clamping down on a model's leg. In an instant, she's yanked underwater, her leg burning with pain as the shark pulls her deeper, thrashing and refusing to let go. Blood fills the water as she struggles, desperately kicking and clawing to break free, her lungs screaming for air. The crew watches in horror, scrambling for anything to help as her strength fades. This is just one of 6 terrifying encounters where peaceful days turned into bloody battles for survival against one of nature's deadliest predators. On a bright morning in February 2004, Byron Bay Beach in New South Wales, Australia, was buzzing with energy. Known for its stunning coastlines and clear blue waters, Byron Bay was a popular destination for tourists and surfers. This stretch of sand attracted not only beach lovers, but also photographers from around the world who used its breathtaking backdrop for fashion shoots. That day, the beach was the set for an exclusive bikini photoshoot for a major fashion brand, with model Lena Hart as the star. Lena had been working as a model for several years. At 24, she had already built a name for herself in the industry, known for her natural beauty and calm confidence in front of the camera. This shoot was a big opportunity for her, a chance to be featured in a campaign that would be seen around the world. The team had started setting up early, working quickly to get everything in place before the afternoon crowds filled the beach. As the crew adjusted lighting and set up underwater cameras, Lena prepared herself, mentally rehearsing the poses she wanted to try. She had done many beach shoots before, but this one was different. The director wanted authentic, dynamic shots of her moving in the shallow water, and Lena was excited. The crew positioned themselves along the shore, some setting up on the sand and others wading into the surf with handheld cameras. A safety boat was anchored a short distance away, part of the standard protocol for shoots involving water. Byron Bay's waters, beautiful as they were, had a reputation. Great white sharks were known to frequent the area, especially during the summer months when warmer currents brought them closer to shore. These sharks were among the largest and most powerful predators in the ocean, known for their strength, speed, and sharp instincts. While attacks were rare, the presence of sharks in these waters meant that everyone on the crew stayed alert, especially during shoots that involved the ocean. Lena stepped carefully into the water, feeling the cool waves wash over her feet. The director signaled for her to move a little deeper to get the perfect angle against the sun's reflection on the water. She was focused, following the crew's directions and moving with ease. She waded in, letting the water reach her knees, then her waist, adjusting her posture as she went. The cameras started rolling, capturing her as she posed naturally in the surf. She shifted from one pose to another, her movements smooth and graceful. The crew watched through their viewfinders, giving her signals and feedback. She noticed how the waves framed her, creating a perfect contrast against the bright background. Everything was going well and Lena was relaxed, enjoying the moment. But as Lena moved in the water, something stirred beneath the surface. She didn't see it, and neither did the crew. A large shadow moved slowly, its sleek form gliding closer, drawn by the vibrations of her movements. It was a great white shark over 12 feet long, and it had picked up on her presence. Sharks were known to respond to movement in the water, mistaking it for prey. Lena's shifting and splashing had caught the shark's attention. Suddenly, Lena felt a strong pull on her leg and sharp, searing pain shot through her. Before she could fully register what was happening, she was yanked under the water. Panic filled her as she realized she was in the grip of a massive shark. She thrashed and kicked, trying to break free, but the shark's jaws were locked tight. She felt herself being pulled down, the water around her turning red as she struggled against its powerful hold. The crew on shore watched in horror, frozen for a moment by the shock of what they were seeing. One of the photographers shouted for help, alerting the others and setting off a frantic rush to save her. The safety boat's crew quickly grabbed a spear gun and moved toward her, while another crew member deployed a distress flare, hoping to distract the shark. Lena continued to fight, her lungs burning as she struggled to reach the surface. She could feel herself weakening, the pain in her leg intensifying as blood clouded the water around her. She kicked as hard as she could, her heart pounding as she tried to keep her head above the surface. Then, just as suddenly, the shark released her, possibly startled by the loud flare and the commotion from the nearby boat. The lifeguards on the beach threw a rope toward her, shouting encouragement as she grabbed hold of it. She held on with every ounce of strength she had left, letting the lifeguards pull her toward the shore. The crew watched in tense silence, relief flooding over them as she neared the sand. Lena was barely conscious, her face pale and her breathing shallow. They carried her to safety, working quickly to stop the bleeding from the deep bite wound on her leg. An ambulance was called immediately, and within minutes paramedics were on the scene, stabilizing her and preparing her for transport to the hospital. The shock of what had happened left everyone shaken. The once busy beach falling silent as the crew and onlookers tried to process the terrifying incident. Word of the attack spread quickly. News outlets picked up the story, and soon it was being discussed nationwide. Lena had survived, but her injuries were severe, and her recovery would be long. The incident raised serious concerns about beach safety, especially during photo shoots or events that brought people into shark-prone waters. In response, local authorities increased shark monitoring at Byron Bay and implemented stricter guidelines for beach activities involving ocean water. They deployed more safety boats and introduced shark deterrent devices for shoots and events held close to the shore. For Lena, the incident became a defining moment, a reminder of the unexpected dangers in the ocean and the resilience it took to survive. Though her physical scars remained, Lena's story inspired changes that helped protect future beachgoers, turning a moment of terror into a push for greater safety and awareness on Australia's beaches. Increased shark monitoring at Byron Bay and implemented stricter guidelines for beach activities involving ocean water. They deployed more safety boats and introduced shark deterrent devices for shoots and events held close to the shore. For Lena, the incident became a defining moment, a reminder of the unexpected dangers in the ocean and the resilience it took to survive. Though her physical scars remained, Lena's story inspired changes that helped protect future beachgoers, turning a moment of terror into a push for greater safety and awareness on Australia's beaches. In the early hours of August 3, 2006, the quiet fishing village of Seabrook, Maine, lay still under a blanket of fog. The small coastal town relied heavily on the Atlantic, its residents making their living off the cold, rich waters. Jack Sullivan, a seasoned fisherman, had spent his life here, and every morning he rose before dawn to cast his nets into the ocean. It was a job passed down from his father and his father before him, and he knew the waters better than he knew the streets of the village. On that particular morning, Jack left his small house as usual. The air was chilly, the kind of damp cold that settles into your bones. He walked to his boat, thinking about the haul he hoped to bring back that day. Fishing was the main source of income for his family, and each trip out was crucial. The sea, as it always did, felt both comforting and a bit dangerous. In the last few weeks, there had been talk among the fishermen of more sharks near the coast, but Jack brushed it off. He'd seen sharks before. They were just part of life on the water. By the time Jack reached his boat, the first hint of dawn was breaking over the horizon. The village was still asleep as he untied the boat, stepped aboard, and began steering out toward deeper water. His boat rocked gently as he moved farther from the shore, his eyes scanning the horizon, his mind focused on his routine. He went over his mental checklist, readying the nets and bait, just as he had done 1,000 times before. Once he reached a good spot, Jack dropped anchor and began casting his nets, setting them up with bait to attract fish. He worked with practiced hands, and his movements were swift and efficient. But as he worked, he noticed something unusual, a large dark shadow circling under the water near his boat. Jack paused, watching carefully. The shadow moved steadily, its sleek form unmistakable, a great hammerhead shark. Hammerheads were known to hunt along Maine's coast, especially in the late summer months. They were drawn by the schools of fish and the fishermen's bait, powerful predators that could reach up to 13 feet in length. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen hammerheads before, but this one was bigger than most, and it was circling closer than he'd ever experienced. The shark's fin cut through the water's surface, slashing in sharp arcs around his boat. Jack tried to ignore it, hoping it would move on, but each time he glanced over the side, he saw the shark still there, getting closer. After a while, he grew uneasy. He tugged on the net, hoping to pull it up quickly and head back toward shore, but the shark was too close now, brushing against the net and causing the lines to jerk. Jack's heart pounded as he realized the shark was becoming aggressive, possibly frustrated by the bait it could sense but not reach. With each turn, the hammerhead swiped at the net, tearing parts of it, its powerful body causing the lines to strain and snap. In a rush to retrieve his nets and avoid further damage, Jack leaned over the side, grabbing the tangled lines. But the shark didn't back off. Instead, it grew bolder, its massive head bumping the side of the boat, rocking it back and forth. Jack struggled to keep his balance, his hands gripping the net, but the force of the shark's movement sent him stumbling. One of his feet slipped on the slick deck, and he found himself lurching forward, his hands caught in the fishing lines as he tried to steady himself. Before he could react, the shark lunged. In one swift movement, it broke through the water, its jaws clamping down hard on Jack's arm. The pain was instant and searing, a white-hot shock that left him gasping. He tried to pull back, but the shark's grip was firm, its teeth digging deep into his flesh. Blood spilled into the water, and Jack knew he was in serious trouble. Jack fought, his free hand trying to push the shark away, but it was relentless, thrashing as it held him in its jaws. His body jerked with each movement of the shark, the force of its struggle pulling him halfway overboard. He kicked desperately, trying to get back onto the boat. But his arm was tangled in the lines, and the shark's grip showed no sign of weakening. The more he struggled, the tighter the lines seemed to twist around him, holding him in place. His thoughts raced. He thought of his family, his wife, and his kids back in the village, waiting for him to return with the day's catch. He couldn't let it end here, not like this. With every bit of strength he had, he fought to untangle himself, his other hand working frantically to pull his arm free from the shark's teeth. Blood was everywhere, turning the water around him a dark red. His grip on the line slipped as his strength began to fade. The shark finally released him, perhaps startled by the commotion or sated by the taste of blood. Jack fell back onto the deck, gasping, his arm throbbing with pain, blood still dripping steadily from the deep wound. He was weak, his vision blurring, but he knew he had to get back to shore. Summoning the last of his strength, he stumbled to the controls, his injured arm hanging limp at his side. He started the engine, steering the boat back toward the village, his mind focused on one thing: getting help. Every wave jolted his arm, the pain intensifying with each movement, but he gritted his teeth, pushing through. The journey back felt endless, each second stretching as he fought to stay conscious. As he neared the shore, other fishermen spotted his boat, the sight of blood and Jack's slumped form alarming them. They rushed to his aid, pulling him from the boat and onto the dock. Jack's face was pale, his body weak, but he was alive. The local medic arrived, working quickly to stop the bleeding and stabilize him. The fishermen stood around, watching in silence, the shock of what had happened sinking in. The news spread quickly through Seabrook, and the village was abuzz with talk of the attack. People gathered in small groups, discussing the shark's behavior, the close call Jack had faced, and the risks that came with working so close to powerful ocean predators. The older fishermen shared their own stories, tales of shark encounters and the dangers they'd narrowly escaped. For many, Jack's experience was a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictable nature. Jack's injury took weeks to heal, and the scars are a permanent reminder of that morning. But he returned to the sea, cautious but undeterred. His story became part of Seabrook's lore, a tale passed down among the fishermen, reminding them of the delicate balance between their livelihoods and the wild, powerful creatures they shared the waters with. The incident led to new discussions in the village about safety measures and precautions. Some fishermen began carrying basic deterrent tools on their boats, and the local authorities considered setting up shark monitoring systems along the coast. Jack's experience had left a mark, not only on his own life but on the entire community, a reminder of the respect and caution the ocean demanded. The Gold Coast Surf Championship is one of Australia's biggest surfing events, attracting the world's top surfers and eager spectators to the beaches of Queensland each year. By February 2008, the crowds had already gathered under the warm sun, buzzing with excitement. That morning, young pro surfer Ella Martinez stood quietly on the sand, taking it all in. She was only 20, but she'd already made a name for herself with her skill, focus, and the fearless way she tackled even the largest waves. This competition was her chance to prove herself and maybe win her first major title. Ella had been working for this moment for years, spending early mornings and long afternoons practicing in all kinds of weather. She'd trained hard for the physical demands and knew the waters around the Gold Coast well. It was shark season, but that wasn't new for Australian surfers. The water here was home to plenty of marine life, including the dangerous bull shark. Bull sharks were known for their strength, aggression, and presence near shorelines where surfers often found themselves. Though the competition organizers had taken extra steps for safety, most surfers knew there was always a risk. Ella's heat was set for mid-morning. She checked her board, took a deep breath, and headed toward the water as the announcer called her name. The crowd cheered and Ella felt a surge of energy. She paddled out with confidence, her focus narrowing as she prepared to ride the waves that could make or break her place in the competition. The water felt cool against her skin and she welcomed the rush as she cut through the waves, her body moving smoothly with the board. She waited for the right wave, her gaze steady and her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. Finally, a towering wave approached and Ella paddled hard, catching its momentum as she rose, her balance and control steady as she rode it. She moved effortlessly, her focus solely on the wave's rhythm, completely unaware of what was approaching from beneath. Just as Ella began to turn, she noticed a shadow in the water nearby. At first, she thought it was just another surfer, but a glance down made her stomach twist. It was a bull shark. She'd seen sharks before from a distance, but this one was dangerously close, its movements calculated, its eyes fixed on her. The crowd on shore saw it too, gasping in horror as the shark came up near her board. Ella tried to keep her balance, staying as calm as she could, but the shark didn't back away. Instead, it made a quick, sharp turn, its large body circling her with unsettling focus. She felt her pulse quicken, fear settling in as she realized just how close she was to this powerful predator. She turned her board slightly, hoping to make it to shore, but as she paddled, the shark lunged, its jaws closing in on her shoulder. The pain was sudden, sharp, and overwhelming, and Ella felt herself being pulled down. She struggled, instinctively using her board to push against the shark, her mind racing with a desperate need to break free. Blood spread through the water, and she fought to stay afloat. Her breaths coming fast and shallow as she kicked hard, doing everything she could to get away. On shore, the crowd watched in horror, some calling out, others frantically signaling for help. Fellow surfers nearby saw the attack and paddled quickly toward her, their faces tense as they braved the waters to try to reach her. Lifeguards acted fast, one jumping into a rescue boat while others swam toward her, their eyes fixed on the scene. Ella managed to pull her shoulder free, but the shark was relentless, circling back for another attack. She swung her board between them, trying to create a barrier as she paddled with her good arm, feeling the burning pain of the bite with every stroke. The water around her was tinged with red, a terrifying reminder of the danger she was in. The shore seemed impossibly far, but Ella focused on each movement, willing herself forward. The rescue boat reached her just as the shark moved in again. One lifeguard extended a pole, trying to distract the shark, while another threw her a rope. Ella grabbed hold of her injured arm, feeling a surge of relief as the boat began to pull her in. She could see the determination in the faces of her rescuers, their focus unwavering as they worked to get her out of the water. The shark made one last pass, its body cutting through the water just feet from the boat, but the noise and activity finally drove it off. Ella felt herself being lifted onto the boat, her shoulder throbbing and her body shaking from adrenaline and pain. She lay back, trying to catch her breath as the lifeguards applied pressure to her wound, their hands moving quickly to stop the bleeding. The boat sped toward shore, where paramedics were already waiting. Ella's vision blurred as she felt herself slipping into shock, her thoughts scattered and her body numb. As they reached the sand, she heard the distant sounds of people shouting, felt the hands lifting her gently onto a stretcher, and then the sensation of her shoulder being carefully wrapped. The crowd watched in silence, many in awe of her resilience, others shaken by the reminder of the ocean's unpredictable danger. The event was temporarily halted as organizers and officials assessed the situation, discussing ways to protect surfers in future competitions better. Ella's bravery left an impression on everyone there, and her determination to survive inspired both fear and respect. Though her injury was serious, Ella's spirit was strong. Her journey was far from over, and her story became a powerful testament to both the courage of surfers and the relentless force of the sea. In March of 1999, off the coast of South Carolina, a team of marine archaeologists prepared for an exciting dive. They were led by Dr. Lucas Grant, a passionate marine archaeologist, known for his dedication to uncovering underwater relics. This dive was special. A newly discovered World War II shipwreck rested deep below the surface, and Lucas was determined to explore it up close. This wreck held secrets, and he believed it could reveal details of the war, and perhaps show how marine life adapted around the remains of the past. The day started early for Lucas and his team. They loaded equipment onto their boat, preparing underwater cameras, lights, and high-tech diving gear. Lucas, 38, had spent years leading dives all over the world, but each dive still filled him with a sense of purpose. For this dive, he studied maps, checked currents, and reviewed every safety protocol. The South Carolina coast, known for its warm waters, was a popular spot for marine life, especially reef sharks. These sharks were common in the area, often curious around divers but not usually aggressive unless threatened. Reef sharks were strong, with a streamlined shape that allowed them to glide effortlessly. They often patrolled the wreck sites drawn by the fish that gathered around them. The boat set out, cutting through calm waters as the sun rose higher in the sky. Lucas and his team went over the dive plan again. He would dive down first, with a couple of divers following at a slight distance to document and assist. He planned to examine the ship's hull, documenting any unique features and looking for any artifacts the sea might have preserved over the decades. When the boat reached the dive site, Lucas suited up, checking each piece of his gear with precision. The team lowered the underwater cameras, adjusting their angles to capture every detail. Lucas secured his oxygen tank, tightened his gloves, and tested his underwater flashlight. The others watched as he gave a quick thumbs up and dropped backward into the water, starting his descent. The water around him grew darker as he went deeper, but Lucas remained focused, his movements calm and steady. The underwater world enveloped him, and soon he caught sight of the shipwreck below. It was larger than he had expected, its metal frame covered in barnacles and seaweed, the sides worn down by years of currents and waves. Fish darted around him as he moved closer, his flashlight illuminating pieces of rusted metal and broken equipment strewn along the seafloor. Lucas started with the ship's bow, shining his light carefully over each detail. His camera captured everything: the broken portholes, the warped metal, the eerie stillness of a forgotten time. As he worked, he became lost in the task, eager to document as much as he could. His gloved hands brushed over sections of the hull, each touch revealing more about the ship's long history. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a large shape moving nearby, a reef shark. It was a powerful presence gliding through the water with grace, and Lucas felt his pulse quicken. He knew reef sharks frequented these waters, drawn by the fish and activity around shipwrecks. They were usually indifferent to divers, but Lucas knew to be cautious, especially with a shark of this size. He continued his work, glancing over his shoulder to track the shark's movements. But as he adjusted his camera to capture a closer view of the hull, he accidentally kicked a piece of metal, causing a clanging noise that echoed in the water. The shark seemed to react to the sound, its body turning sharply toward him, its posture shifting from relaxed to alert. Lucas's breathing grew heavier and a slight panic set in. He adjusted his position, trying to back away slowly, but the shark moved closer. Its curiosity heightened. Lucas knew he had to stay calm to avoid sudden movements that might provoke it, but his heart pounded as the shark circled him. He clutched his flashlight tightly, pointing it toward the shark in hopes it would create a barrier. The shark, however, did not back down. In a swift movement, the shark lunged, its jaws closing around Lucas's arm. The pain was immediate and intense, and Lucas fought to stay composed. He knew that panicking would only make things worse, but the shark's grip was relentless. Blood began to cloud the water around him, and he could feel himself weakening as the shark thrashed, its powerful body jerking him with each movement. Desperate to escape, Lucas struck the shark with his flashlight, trying to free his arm. The shark released him momentarily, but then it came back, circling him once more. Lucas tried to swim upward, his mind focused on reaching the surface, but he was losing strength fast, the injury taking a toll on his body. His vision blurred, the edges darkening as he struggled to move. The other divers noticed the blood in the water and realized something had gone terribly wrong. One diver signaled for an emergency ascent, alerting the boat crew to prepare for a quick rescue. They began to descend toward Lucas, pushing through the water as fast as they could, their faces tense with worry. The safety divers reached him, quickly assessing the situation, but the depth and the shark's continued presence made it difficult to get close. One diver managed to wrap a line around Lucas, signaling to the boat to pull him up. They moved swiftly, knowing each second counted. The ascent felt endless, each meter bringing them closer to the surface, but with the weight of urgency pressing on them. Lucas's grip on consciousness weakened, the pain overwhelming, his breaths shallow. As they broke the surface, the crew on the boat pulled Lucas aboard, their faces etched with shock and sadness. His body lay still, his skin pale against the boat's deck. The team worked quickly, trying to stop the bleeding, but it was clear that Lucas was gone. The reality of the loss settled over them, the sounds of the ocean around them eerily quiet as they realized the gravity of what had happened. Back on shore, news of the tragedy spread, reaching the scientific community and those who knew Lucas's work. His team returned carrying the weight of his memory, their minds haunted by the attack and the risks they faced in their work. Lucas's passing sparked conversations across the field, a harsh reminder of the unpredictable nature of the ocean and its inhabitants. In the weeks that followed, the incident prompted discussions about safety in deep-sea dives and the need for greater caution in high-risk areas. The presence of sharks around wrecks, once seen as a simple fact of marine life, was now seen as a factor that required serious consideration. Lucas's work would continue, carried forward by his team, but his story remained a reminder of the power of the sea and the respect it demanded from all who entered its depths. Clearwater Beach in Florida was buzzing with activity on a warm July afternoon in 2010. Families had flocked to the water, eager to cool off from the summer heat. The beach was one of the busiest in the area, and the lifeguards knew it would be a full day. Amanda Reyes, a dedicated lifeguard with years of experience, had been on duty since early morning. She loved her job, keeping watch over the ocean and the people enjoying it. The beach was like her second home, and she took pride in protecting those who came to enjoy it. That afternoon, Amanda was positioned at the lifeguard tower, scanning the horizon and watching the waves as they rolled in. She'd seen all kinds of marine life in her time, from harmless schools of fish to the occasional stingray, but she'd always kept a keen eye out for one specific creature. Florida's waters were home to various types of sharks, and bull sharks were known to come close to shore, especially during warmer months when they hunted for fish in shallow waters. As she looked out, Amanda noticed something unusual, a dark shape cutting through the waves near a cluster of swimmers. Her pulse quickened as she focused on it, realizing it was unmistakably the fin of a shark. She knew she had to act fast. Remaining calm, Amanda immediately signaled her fellow lifeguards and activated the emergency protocol. A loud alarm sounded along the beach, a clear signal for swimmers to exit the water immediately. The lifeguards waved their arms, directing everyone to move quickly yet calmly toward the shore. People began to react, pulling themselves out of the water, but the tension was rising. Amanda kept her eyes fixed on the dark fin as it moved closer to the shallow area. Then, through the noise of the alarm and the splashing swimmers, Amanda heard a child's panicked cry. A young boy had lagged behind, separated from his family in the rush. She could see the shark was now dangerously close to him, its movements focused and intent. Without hesitation, Amanda grabbed her rescue buoy and dashed into the water. She knew the risks, but saving lives was what she'd trained for, and there was no time to waste. As she reached the buoy, the shark darted forward, brushing close enough that she could see its powerful body and the shadow it cast beneath the water. Before she could shield the buoy completely, the shark struck, its jaws snapping around his leg in a quick, brutal bite. The boy screamed in pain, and Amanda acted instantly, using the buoy to create a barrier between the shark and the child. Her heart pounded as she kept herself between them, pushing back against the shark each time it lunged. The shark was relentless, drawn by the commotion, and Amanda swung the buoy with all her strength, aiming to distract it. The boy clung to her, his grip tight as she moved backward, slowly guiding him toward the shore. The shark wasn't giving up easily, and Amanda could feel its powerful body pushing against her. At one point, it lunged again, catching her arm in a quick bite. The pain was sharp, but Amanda fought through it, keeping her focus on getting the boy to safety. Each second felt stretched, each movement bringing them closer to the shore, the beach seeming so far away. The lifeguards on shore were shouting, urging her forward, prepared to jump in if needed. Finally, with a final swing of the buoy, Amanda managed to drive the shark back just enough to get herself and the boy out of immediate danger. They reached shallow water, where two other lifeguards rushed forward, grabbing them and pulling them onto the sand. Amanda collapsed onto the beach, gasping for breath, her arm throbbing from the bite. Paramedics quickly arrived, tending to the boy's injured leg and Amanda's wounds. The crowd watched in silence, some in shock, others murmuring about what they'd just witnessed. Amanda's quick action saved the boy's life and prevented further injuries. News of her bravery spread quickly, and the incident sparked immediate changes in Clearwater Beach. Enhanced shark monitoring and additional training for lifeguards were put into place, ensuring greater protection for everyone who came to enjoy the water. Amanda's experience served as a powerful reminder of both the dangers of the ocean and the courage required to keep others safe in those moments. The day had started as a perfect August morning in 2012 along the coast of Monterey, California. The air was filled with excitement as families and tourists gathered on the docks, eager for a day of whale watching. For the Thompsons, a family of 4 from Arizona, this trip was a highlight of their summer vacation. Mark and Linda Thompson watched as their children, 15-year-old Ryan and 8-year-old Emily, bounced with energy, ready to board the Seafarer, a well-known tour boat in the area. They'd all looked forward to spotting whales and dolphins, creatures they'd only seen on TV. The Seafarer was a sturdy vessel built for these kinds of excursions, and the crew had assured everyone that Monterey Bay was a safe spot known for its rich marine life. The waters off the coast were nutrient-dense, attracting all kinds of ocean creatures, including whales, seals, and at times great white sharks. The sharks were part of the ecosystem here, and while rare, sightings sometimes happened. But with an experienced crew and safety protocols in place, the family felt comfortable and safe. The boat left the harbor mid-morning, and soon they were cruising further out to sea. Mark pointed out the glistening waves to Emily, who clutched her camera, ready to capture the experience. Ryan was focused on the water, hoping to spot a dolphin or, if he was lucky, a humpback whale breaching. The captain guided the boat smoothly, and the crew pointed out various birds and sea lions along the way. Spirits were high, and the boat's gentle rocking only added to the feeling of adventure. As they reached the deeper waters of the bay, the crew spotted something unusual on the horizon, a small group of great white sharks circling. The sight was rare and exhilarating for everyone on board. The crew encouraged passengers to observe from a safe distance. Linda and Mark exchanged nervous glances, but the kids were captivated, leaning over to catch a glimpse. Emily pointed wide-eyed as the massive dorsal fins moved gracefully through the water, appearing and disappearing with each pass. The crew explained that fish schools near the boat likely drew the sharks, but they assured everyone it was nothing to worry about. They advised everyone to stay calm and to remain on the deck, enjoying the sight from afar. But as they watched, one of the sharks seemed to shift its attention, its large dark shape gliding closer and closer to the boat. The crew grew quiet, their expressions tense as the shark circled just beneath the surface, moving with purpose. In an instant, the shark breached, slamming its powerful body against the side of the boat. The impact was sudden, jolting everyone on board and causing a wave of panic. Emily grabbed onto her mother's arm while Ryan nearly stumbled from the force of the hit. The sound of the shark's body colliding with the hull was terrifying, an echoing thud that sent everyone into a state of shock. Passengers gasped, some screaming as the shark backed away, only to circle around for another strike. The captain tried to steady the boat, but the damage from the collision was evident. The hull creaked and the boat tilted slightly, water beginning to seep in. Another loud bang followed as the shark slammed into the boat again, its massive jaws snapping at the hull, denting it with frightening force. The crew sprang into action, instructing passengers to put on life jackets and preparing the emergency lifeboats. But the shark's aggression didn't stop. As crew members rushed to prepare the lifeboats, the shark breached again, its jaws latching onto the edge of the boat. Its teeth sank into the side, splintering wood and metal with terrifying ease. In the chaos, Linda felt a tug as the boat rocked again, and she realized that both Ryan and Emily had lost their balance, tumbling toward the edge. Mark lunged forward, grabbing Ryan's arm, but just as he steadied his son, Emily screamed. The shark, in a quick, aggressive move, had surged forward, its open jaws catching her leg. She cried out in pain, her small hands clinging to her mother as Mark desperately tried to pull her back. Blood spread through the water, the sight freezing everyone on deck as they watched in horror. Linda held Emily close, her face pale as she tried to stop the bleeding with her own hands. Ryan, too, clung to his father, his face etched with fear. The crew continued to fight to stabilize the boat, but the shark's repeated strikes had damaged the engine. With the boat losing power, the crew activated emergency flares, hoping to signal for rescue. The passengers huddled together, their eyes darting between the shark circling below and the rough waters around them. The crew managed to deploy lifeboats, helping passengers climb down into the smaller inflatable rafts. The Thompsons were among the first, with Mark carrying Emily, and Linda and Ryan followed close behind. The crew instructed everyone to keep calm and stay low, trying to minimize movement as the lifeboats swayed in the choppy water. The shark, however, hadn't retreated. It continued to circle, its dark fin cutting through the water around the lifeboats. Every splash seemed to draw its attention, and the passengers held their breaths, terrified that any moment could bring another attack. Emily clung to her father, her leg wrapped hastily in a towel, while Linda whispered words of comfort, her own hands shaking as she held Ryan close. Hours seemed to pass in that state of fear, the lifeboats drifting, the shark never straying far. The crew sent out distress signals, hoping that rescue would come before nightfall. The sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky when finally the sound of a distant motor reached their ears. A rescue boat appeared on the horizon, speeding toward them as the crew signaled with flashlights and hand waves. The relief was overwhelming. Rescue teams helped each passenger aboard, carefully tending to those who had been injured. Emily was carried onto the rescue boat, her face pale but her grip strong as she clung to her mother's hand. Ryan followed close behind, shaken but grateful to be safe. The traumatic experience left a lasting mark on the Thompson family. The shock of that day would stay with them for years to come. The image of the shark, the thud of its body against the hull, and the feeling of helplessness etched in their minds. The incident sparked immediate changes for tour operators along the coast, with stricter safety protocols and enhanced shark deterrents to protect future passengers from the risks of the ocean's powerful predators.